Oh my goodness, let me get adjusted here. Oh man. Hello, everybody. Hello. This is going to be an interesting word. I will give you some insight on where this came from. I've gotten questions. I don't often publicly post about relationships or my private life. I believe that there's wisdom in that. I've often gotten the question if I'm married, if I have kids, if I've ever been married. So part of this message is stemming from that. But also, I have seen and coached so many women specifically through some really challenging times, through trauma, through pain, through navigating some really interesting relationships, that I believe this message was put on my heart to speak to there being another way and really give insight into how you can literally save decades of shame and suffering that being in the wrong connections or not exercising wisdom or not taking your time or not healing or not facing your own insecurities can cause. Okay. So I'm actually going to talk about women and relationships. So to some degree, men could apply this to their own life as well, but I'm going to be mainly speaking of women in relationship and how to assess a partner, how to assess on levels that we're not typically told about or instructed by. So for example, if you didn't have a father figure present, you might not have had an example. You might not have seen what a healthy relationship between a man and a woman looks like, right? Or if you've had a string of really unhealthy relationships, then there could be pain and trauma that you're navigating, and it could also be difficult to stay or be in or even entertain something that is healthy because that's not what you know and that's not what you expect. So I want to give you at least some criteria that you can work with if you are pursuing relationship, if you're looking for a relationship, if you've left a relationship or gotten out of a relationship, or if you're somewhere in between. I'm going to give you some criteria that I have found helpful in my own life when it comes to relationships. I'm somebody that has really devoted many years to just doing the healing work that my soul has needed, which I believe is a life journey, right? But to really face any issues that have been passed down in my family line, to make sure that I'm not perpetuating generational curses, and to straight up just not rush into things because I don't need that. Right? And the word will tell you that you are whole all by yourself, right? And that marriage is really a lifestyle change completely, and it's a destiny shift for sure. So it's something that shouldn't be rushed into, and I think we can save ourselves, again, a lot of shame and suffering if we do a majority of the work on the front end. So let's just go into this. All right, so I'm going to be talking about way more than what we typically see. We typically talk about looks and swagger and charisma, right? And that's all great, but if that is the only thing you're going by, you are definitely setting yourself up for mega disappointment. Okay. So by 30, I would say, and I can say, right, by 30 at least, the thought, the goal would be that you've already made the mistakes, you've learned the lessons, you've corrected the behavior, and you're no longer continuing to embrace or entertain the superficial. Like you're actually evaluating from a totally different vantage point than maybe you did in your 20s, right? Like you might have dated the abusers, the cheaters, the narcissists, and you don't want to find yourself in the position where you're still doing this, where you're still investing in or engaging and entertaining superficial and unhealthy or even abusive relationships. Okay. Because what that does is it really, if you boil down the criteria, it from the beginning of these relationships, it's exposing that it's very temporal and superficial, right? It might be a new relationship, it might be a new guy, right? But the criteria or the content at the beginning is very temporal and superficial as far as what you're looking at and what your standards are for your rules of engagement, if you will. Okay. And a lot of times, if it's just temporal or if it's just superficial, like looks and charisma and sex, right? Then that's a recipe for abuse, because you're kind of positioning yourself as an object. Okay. So the deeper underlying issue with this is that you will never experience the quality of life as a woman of God, as a daughter of God, that you are designed to experience, as long as you look for an Instagram man, right? That you can just take photos with and just portray a certain image with, okay? You'll never get the substance that you deserve if that is what you settle for, just temporal and superficial things. If that is all that you want, just like an Instagram boyfriend or whatever, you are not going to get the substance and the life and the support that you really deserve. Okay. So the intention of the message on today is to help you as a listener wise up and realize that you've got to go deeper than what you may have been perpetuating. Now, if this is not you, this is also very useful information for somebody that you know, okay? Or somebody that you may encounter. It's just practical wisdom that you can apply to your life, okay? So we need to, as a culture, stop choosing partners that we can just have fun with, okay? Because a majority, I would say a great portion of life is not fun, right? The day-to-day activities, the twists and turns that life takes, a lot of those are not fun. So when the fun runs out, so does the partner, if that is all that you were looking to them for. You might have experienced this just with relationships in your life. If you just have those people that you hang out with to go have a good time, when life is real, when life is serious, when it's deep, when you're really walking through something, usually those friends are not the one that are walking through that with you. You've got to enlist new people for support and help in that season, right? So a woman in this case, again, I'm speaking women point of view, when selecting a partner, or things to consider when doing that, to save yourself shame and suffering, decades of it potentially, choose a man that has the kind of character that you can suffer with. And I know this sounds weird, but that you can suffer with and not just have fun with. So what do I mean? When you go through some of the darkest times of your life, and we all do, right? You want someone that has the substance and the character that can be there for you, and that has the capacity to walk through that with you and actually be able to support you through that, right? Somebody that can kind of hold your arms up sometimes when you're drowning, right? Like we need that in a partner, right? And sometimes we take turns with that. So it's really important to consider that. If you selected somebody just because they're fun and you can go out and you can drink and it can be very, again, superficial and temporal, that capacity, that character, that depth may not be there. Likely it won't be there, okay? And when your life takes these twists and turns, and it will, you need somebody that's got this inner fortitude and quality that can just stick it out with you, right? Sometimes somebody can't necessarily give us advice, and a lot of times we don't want that. We just want somebody that's a friend and somebody that's a really good partner that can walk with us through that, right? So again, this can help you. So I hope that you're paying attention, taking notes, taking this in for you, or letting it be wisdom that you can extend to somebody else. But you can literally save your life decades, 20s, 30s, 40s. You don't want to be wrestling with the same issues, particularly in relationships, because relationships, when done well, help us thrive in life. They're a major component of that. And when done wrong, keep us stuck, right? And can really cause a lot of pain and damage. And sometimes we don't recover from that. So save your life. Do yourself a favor and save your life decades of suffering and shame, okay? And what the word will tell you is that man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. So that reveals, in my opinion, that we need to be looking not at the surface, not at the temporal things, right? But look at the heart. What is going on inside of this person that you're considering a relationship with, or that you might be in relationship with? What is going on inside? What is their inner life revealing to you? Okay. So here are some of the intangible things to look for. Again, these are things that matter so, so much. They're these sort of unspoken, behind the scenes, under the surface, deep stuff that we don't always talk about. They're intangible. You can't just like put your hand on it and get it. But it's like the major things that we need in life. God is like oxygen, right? We can't see it, but literally God is our life force, right? Love is the powerful divine energy of God that flows and can break through so much in life, right? However, we can't necessarily see it, right? We can see how different people express love, but it's something that we can feel, right? So I'm going to go through some intangible things. And I've got about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Got 8 things. I'm just going to list them. So again, it makes it pretty simple to take notes. And then what you can do with this too is, for you, it could be eye-opening and give you some awareness of where to make some adjustments. It could be things that you are praying with God over if you are in that transition into preparation for partnership or for marriage. And this could be a reevaluation. If you've been through a lot of hurtful relationships and some tough times, this could really help you identify where might have you gotten stuck before, okay? And you can kind of do a temperature check by just on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at with these things, right? Or where's your read on this person on these different things? Are they closer to a 10, meaning they're meeting this, or they're definitely not? And so by the end of this, you can see what your grid looks like, okay? So the first intangible thing is that this partner, this man that you connect with, needs to be mature, okay? The word tells us that at some point, we need to stop just drinking milk and we need to go into the meat, right? So it means that we need to grow and mature in Christ. Maturity is key, right? So one of the things, spiritual maturity is so, so big. The word will tell you not to be unequally yoked with somebody who is an unbeliever, but this is really, really important in the sense of, can this man be a spiritual leader for the home? Okay. Now, the word also says, wives submit to their husbands. So does this man lead himself? Is he submitted to God? And is he leading his life spiritually already before you enter the picture, right? And are you confident that he is doing that to such a degree that you would feel comfortable submitting to his leadership, right? Granted, you have your own relationship with God, but when you go into a covenant relationship, you're submitted to his leadership. So I would say it's really interesting. If you don't trust his leadership, then why would you even be intimate with this person? Because that just brings you into many different things like soul ties and a lot of dysfunction and a lot of gray area and confusion. And God is not the author of confusion. So a man needs to be spiritually deep enough, for example, to help you heal. Because in the world that we live in, it is very common for women, at least by the age of sometimes 13, 18, at least by those ages, to have gone through trauma, and men too, right? So it's so helpful when you have somebody that isn't going to be the answer, that isn't going to fix you, that isn't going to diagnose you, but can be spiritually deep enough to know how to help you heal, to know how to hold space for you, to know how to pray with you, and to really be patient and understanding and loving and sensitive and in tune emotionally with you, and stable internally to such a degree that whatever you're walking through doesn't throw him off. With me? So he's somebody in and of itself, and he can be there with you and also be strong to hold that space too. And vice versa, right? So that's really, really important. You don't just run up on this either. This isn't just luck that happens. This is something, again, that is an intangible that you look for, that is demonstrated, that you can see. You don't want to have to coach your partner into doing things that you need, because then that means ultimately that you want to change them in order to be in a relationship with them. So when it comes down to non-negotiables, spiritual maturity to some degree, spiritual leadership, emotional stability, emotional intelligence, those kind of things speak volumes. So that's really important to pay attention to, okay? And what you don't want is to just get into a relationship, again, that is superficial and just temporal and very transient, right? Where you haven't even seen somebody through enough seasons to really get a grasp on who they are and what their character looks like. Because what you'll end up doing is just compounding your brokenness. Let's just keep stacking brokenness in your life, right? And when you've got a call, when you've got destiny on your life, you ain't got time to work through and heal from all that compounded brokenness. Can you imagine if that was just dissolved and dissipated and you actually had all of that freed up energy to focus on what you're here to do? Totally different life path. Okay, so number one is look for the maturity of this man. And then also keep in mind that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So as you're thinking and showing up, that's often what you attract as well. That's what you invite into your life. So if you have not done your healing work, then the other thing to consider is that you are not ready for relationship. Otherwise, you will likely be perpetuating what you've already been through or punishing this person for what you've walked through before. Okay, so it is so important to pay attention to how you're showing up. Okay, and then the word also says, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church. And I want to highlight that because this person, what that's saying is this partner would be mature enough to help bring restoration to you. That's what Christ did with the church. He brought restoration to it. So this man needs to be healthy enough to recognize your inner life and your mind and your emotions and be sensitive and tuned in to where you're coming from a place of security. Again, that's not intimidating or that doesn't bring out my insecurities. I am man enough to be able to be with you in that and here for you as you walk through that. With me? Okay. Number two is this partner needs to be smart enough for you to be intrigued by, right? So I don't know about you, but I am very intellectual. I love going beneath the surface, right? Like surface does not do it for me. I can't, right? Like life has been so real and it was very real for me very early on. So I need some intrigue. I need somebody that's got mental capacity, spiritual depth, emotional stability that can really talk about these deep and wonderful mysteries of God, that can really work through challenges in a very constructive and creative way. So think about that. You want somebody that you're actually intrigued by, that excites you and stimulates you, that doesn't actually cause you to feel like you actually not disrespect, but you don't appreciate maybe where they're at. You just are on different levels, right? And so if it's not intriguing you, that's something that's really big to consider because you can't just stir that up in somebody else. That's something that we fire or we fan that flame within, right? So that's something to pay attention to. You want some depth that you're intrigued by, all right? Not just, this man works out, he can flex his muscles, he can dress really good, drive a really cool car, smell great. That's awesome. Again, being IG boyfriend, right? But does he have the intrigue that you need in order to develop relationship? Because the majority of the relationship is not all the showy stuff. Okay. Number three is that he would also be masculine enough to draw the line when you are kind of pushing it too far, but gentle enough to make you feel safe. Like, okay, like this is not the time to have this conversation. Like I see emotionally that this is going to get out of hand. So let's table this and circle back when the emotions have subsided. Like somebody that is masculine enough to take ownership of what is happening, right? And then also gentle enough so that you don't feel intimidated or that you don't question your safety in any kind of way. So that is very, very important because a lot of times when you're experiencing emotions, when you're vulnerable, if you never feel safe being able to express your emotions or being able to trust how those situations are handled, right, then you won't really be able to be naked, so to speak, with your partner. And to some degree, then you can't be transparent and completely authentic. And that's not what you want in terms of a life partner. All right. The next one is that he is a provider. He's able to take care of himself. He's got work ethic, and he can also support the bigger dream. So for example, he actually likes that you're ambitious or driven or focused and that you have a vision, and like this is there's you as a person and the whole person, and the man is a whole person, and together there's a vision that helps you be a power couple in some relationships. Other times there's still the desire and the freedom for both people to be individuals, but the man is still a provider. He's not looking to you, if you have the bigger bank account, to be paying for his gas and paying for all the meals and doing all of that. He's still a gentleman, right? He still goes that extra step. He's paying for your meals. He's providing for you. He's supporting your dreams too. Okay. So that's really, really important when you think of, am I expressing and becoming more of who I am? Is this person helping me evolve, or do I feel stuck being connected to them? Right? Okay. Next one is that he can exercise non-sexual affection and demonstrate how special that you are to him on a consistent basis. So he's not looking to you just like an object, right? Or because the reality is some men, some women can have sex and it can mean nothing. So if that's all as far as affection that is going on with you, you likely will be feeling unfulfilled very quickly. If there's depth to you, you will likely feel unfulfilled very quickly. And sometimes this can go into love languages a little bit. Some people really need quality time and affection and touch, right? And so it's really important, like while you're cooking, does he help you and just, rub his hand on your back? Or when you are, having a rough day, is he running an errand for you? Like whatever it is, but is he showing how much you mean to him on a day-to-day basis? Is he somehow demonstrating this affection? Okay. That's showing you that you are special and that you're a priority. Next, on some level, he needs to be able to communicate his feelings and has so on some level, he needs to be able to communicate his feelings. What I mean by this is, if a man does not have capacity or does not feel comfortable communicating with you, there's going to be some disconnect there, right? And if he's not in tune with whatever it is that he's going through and he's not comfortable coming to you, then it's very likely that he is also not able to have compassion for whatever you are emotionally walking through or dealing with. So he's got to be able to, on some level, communicate what he's dealing with. Like if he is walking through grief, he needs to be able to tell you that that's hitting him hard, right? Or if he is really facing a dynamic challenge in the workplace or something, he needs to be able to communicate that to you so that you're not taking the brunt of that, or that you're not feeling this disconnect and left filling in the blanks, right? Super important. And then 2 more. He needs to be secure with his position in your life, okay? So a lot of times a man is, again, a leader. So if he is not secure with his position in your life, then he is likely not your partner. Okay. And I would say that that's mutual. If you're not secure with your position or your place in his life, and that's also very revealing. So that needs to be something that is secure and stable. It's not something that you wrestle with and question every day. All right. And then lastly, it is really important to pay attention to how he makes you feel. We know that energy doesn't lie. A lot of times we get these, sometimes people call them gut checks, intuition. A lot of times we get that, but you want to be able to feel safe and to be able to relax when you're around this person. You don't want it to constantly bring up anxiety, to constantly trigger fear, to constantly make you be questioning. That is not what you want out of a partnership. So these are 8 things at least that I've walked through here that are indicators of intangible things to be looking for when you're evaluating a partnership, when you're healing from a cycle of pain in relationship and preparing for partnership. When you're in a partnership and you're wondering what the heck is going on, very likely it might be one of these things. But it is so important to actually do what is required to get healing for yourself and understand what are your triggers, what are the things that still come up for you. How do you feel safe and relaxed? What do you need? How can you communicate that? So, so important. You can't put that work on somebody else. So all with a grain of salt, but this work needs to be done by you first before you can even think correctly. As a man thinks, so is he, right? As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So it's so, so important for you, even in relationship, even if you're in one now, to be looking at your heart and looking at what you need help with. And sometimes that's even getting outside help so that you're not coming to your partner to be all of the answers for you, right? There's God, there could be therapy, there could be coaching, there could be a life group of some kind, there could be a small group of some kind, a recovery group. There's so many options, but you've got to be willing to do that work and be an individual outside of a partnership. Okay. Now, when it comes to partnership, specifically committed partnership and covenant, right? That is why it's so, so important before you lock yourself into something that is more permanent, right? And the best things usually come out of commitment, right? Because sometimes we start something and we just bail out, so you never see the fruit. So when it comes to partnership and relationship, if you are called to commitment and to covenant, you've got to be looking at the intangibles. Otherwise, it is very likely that you could be in a partnership based on very temporal and superficial things, which will only be a setup for abuse and dysfunction. Okay. So that is so, so important. And then lastly, you can replay this message and just write down what's being highlighted to you and really just pay attention. For example, if you're going to look for these things in somebody else, I would say that you also add this to your homework. So if I were to just walk through that list one more time with you, intangibles. Am I spiritually mature in and of myself? And in order to be able to recognize somebody who also is spiritually mature. Okay. Am I emotionally healthy? What is going on in my heart? Like, I'm going to look at all of that so I know that what I'm dealing with. Okay. Not to say that I absolutely can't be in a relationship until I work out all my issues, because again, we're all imperfectly perfect. We all have imperfections, right? And that's part of the human experience. So I wouldn't say that you've got to be completely whole, because how will you ever know, right? But if you know that there's some things that you need to deal with, whether it's addictions, whether it's you just got out of a relationship and you haven't taken any time, there's definitely some work that needs to be done. If you don't have a relationship, a spiritual relationship, right? If you're not in relationship with God, there's other things that can radically shift how you show up, right? I believe that when you come into relationship with God, your whole identity changes, right? Like, to me, it's night and day. So if you are still looking for somebody to be in your life that was in a former season, if you're already in covenant, that's different. But if you are now evaluating a partnership from pre-God to post, now walking with God, totally different set of parameters and intangibles, right? So I would look, how mature am I? How mature am I? Like, what am I legitimately bringing to the table? Okay. Now, intellectually, like, what intrigues me? What is intriguing about me? What needs to be in place to keep me, right? So even when I join together with somebody else and we become better together, right? How do I make sure that I am whole all by myself, right? So that when I am coming together, that there's still that intrigue about me, and I'm not just morphing into people pleaser and fixer and doer and like losing myself. Like, what makes me intriguing? Really become aware of what those things are. Am I exercising discipline and self-control to the degree that I can offer that to somebody else? Am I taking care of myself and providing for myself? Am I demonstrating affection? Can I communicate what's valuable to me, right? Am I secure in my place in life, or am I desperate? Okay. And how do I make myself feel? So all of this is so, so important, but you can see if we don't do this work, we just perpetuate issues. So I hope that this gave you at least some groundwork or some place to get started. If you would love some coaching or even a self-mastery course to really help you do a deeper dive into this work, visit julianapage.com. There's great resources over there. If this message blessed you, let me know. If there's something that was highlighted to you, let me know that too. If there's a friend that you could think of that would benefit from hearing this, make sure that you copy the link and share with that friend.